Atlanta Falcons. Kind of want to save them in the end. There's so much to talk about with the Falcons. We got the Falcons and the Bucks remaining. Atlanta Falcons, man, they make waves. They go Jalon Walker in the first round, the edge rusher linebacker out of Georgia, and then they trade back into the first round, give up a future one to get James Pierce Jr., the edge out of Tennessee, at pick 26. A next pick is in the third round toward the end. Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, the safety. They go Billy Bowman Jr. out of Oklahoma. Another safety in round 4, and then Wisconsin offensive tackle Jack Nelson in the 5th. So only 5 selections here for the Falcons, and they gave up next year's first round pick. Your thoughts on the Atlanta Falcons? I mean, wildly fascinating draft and wildly fascinating process. Um, because, they end up, so they big picture, they end up coming out of the first round with both Jalon Walker and James Pierce Jr. I mean, I don't think there was any scenario where anybody thought that was possible for any team. And to achieve that is pretty impressive. Now, obviously, in order to make that happen, you have to give up next year's first round draft pick. So it's a little bit like, Houston a couple of years ago, where they were like, well, we also want Will Anderson Jr. Let's go trade for him and let's give away next year's first round draft pick. Now, the difference is obviously when the Houston Texans did that, they had drafted a quarterback first. When the Falcons did it, they had drafted another edge rusher already. It's like it's one thing to be like, well, we want to get greedy and we want this guy too, but the first guy we took is a different player at a different position addressing a different need. It's another thing entirely to be like, well, we already kind of addressed this spot with the first pick, but we really like this guy, so let's go get him again and give up next year's first to do it. So the Falcons over the last few years now are just giving us a whole world of like unique case studies, which is fascinating to me. The Michael Penn Jr. draft him when you already have Kirk Cousins' case study, and now the let's see 2 edge rushers. This is what it is for me, and we'll go back into the why and what they have. But Jalon Walker described as the pristine citizen. Got to have this guy on the team. Unbelievable character. The players who had their character raved about during this process include him, Jalen Milroe, Amecha Ibuka. So they add Jalon Walker, who's only rushed the passer about 300 something times, has shown flashes, but there's some projectability to his game. And then there's James Pierce Jr., who I think I would say unbelievable pass rush win rate. So I would say he's been productive in college. High pass rush grade from PFF. Maybe doesn't finish plays great, but has the character concerns, football character concerns, doesn't love the game, doesn't pay attention enough, doesn't care, whatever it might be. And now they play, and they play the same position, and they're in the same room, and they're both first rounders. And obviously the Falcons like to go make that move for Pierce. You have to assume they loved him enough at 15. And my theory was Jalon Walker had been mocked so many times to Carolina at 8, maybe the Saints at 9, maybe the Niners at 11, and he keeps dropping. And I wonder if the Falcons were just like, man, Walker, we weren't expecting Jalon Walker to be here. Let's get him. And then we have such an edge rush need, right? They traded a 3. Why did they not have picks? They traded a 3 for Matthew Judon before last year, and Judon did absolutely nothing. They still had one of the worst pass rushes last year, and so they had such a need, they said, let's double up. Let's double up on it. So the most fascinating things to me coming out of this is doubling up at edge, but then the 2-year haul of Jalon Walker, James Pearson, last year's Braylon Trice, Brandon Doris, throw Rook Aurora at defensive tackle in there. That's 5 pretty significant draft picks on defensive linemen for a team that needs to rush the passer better, 4 on the edge. And so if they don't do it this year, man, I mean, it's going to be, oh man, it's going to be fascinating to see the Falcons and their aggressiveness here. It is. And part of this is like, what exactly was the thought process and the process generally with this. I kind of agree that I think that they didn't really expect Jalon Walker to be there at 15, that, he was the chalky pick at Carolina at number 8, a bunch of picks before. So I think there's definitely plausible idea that they just hadn't really now looked teams game all this out. They run mock drafts. They run different scenarios. It had to have crossed their mind, but I don't think they really thought it was likely that he would be